Welcome to FO Podcasts. With me is Asanga Abeyagoonasekera. He's the Executive Director for the South Asia Project for the Millennium Project. He is also an international security and geopolitics analyst and a strategic advisor who's from Sri Lanka, but today he's joining us from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Asanga. How are you?
Thank you, Rohan. Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk about the upcoming elections in Myanmar, which are on the 28th of December. Asanga, very quickly, what is happening in Myanmar? Why is the country's military junta planning this election? And why does it matter now?
Well, Rohan, I think one has to understand the context, why the election is kept, what is the ground reality, what's going on in Myanmar. So let me sort of give a brief about what's going on in Myanmar right now. So you have about from 2021, since the coup, more than 6,000 people have died in Myanmar, been killed. More than 3 million, about 3.5 million, I would say, are displaced now. Half the population have fallen into poverty. And according to the United Nations, they mentioned that 20 million, almost the size of Sri Lanka, my country, requires humanitarian assistance immediately. So you have hunger, you have disease, a kind of byproduct of the civil war. But then this is the ground context where the elections are kept, and it is kept, at a time where more than, I would say, 300 of, possibly the resistance groups were fighting the junta. So you have the People's Defense Forces, which is the defense groups emerging from the nationwide arms resistance units who are fighting the junta. Then you have the local defense formations. They call the LDFs. So at the village level, and they are fighting the junta. Then you have the ethnic armed organizations, which is called the EAOs, or the ones like the KIA, the Kachin Independence, or the Karen National Union. So those groups are also fighting the junta. So you have many of them. It's a completely dismantled, I would say, a country where keeping the elections. And junta is now only holding about 15% of the landmass. And you can see the resistance group has sort of managed to take over most of the land. And this is the ground context where the elections are kept. To answer your question, why they're keeping it, it's clearly they want kind of a political, kind of a pause button right now. Why I call it is because what they want is kind of legitimacy right now, international recognitions, legitimacy. So after the territorial loss to the resistance group and the economic collapse, so junta is trying to freeze the time. So it's kind of, life in Myanmar is kind of suspended now, and it's kind of frozen between gunfire and this hunger that's going on, poverty. So when the general seized the power back in 2021, they stacked the election commission with their former officers, designed a vote meant not to reflect the people's will, but to exhaust it. The timing matters because the junta is under pressure now and need to buy time, basically to weaken the international isolations and to kind of repackage the military rule as a constitutional order.
Asanga, let me jump in very quickly, and you can build up on this. So in 2021, the military takes over Myanmar in a coup, and Prime Minister Aung San Suu Kyi she's arrested, and then she's put behind bars. She's now under house arrest. When the military took over the country in 2021, they promised to hold the elections in 2023, which they postponed because they cited rising violence and increasing fighting with the rebel groups that you mentioned. And it's not like the fighting has de-escalated. In fact, it's grown tenfold, in fact. So why are they trying to hold the election now? You say they're seeking legitimacy, but right now they're the weakest they've been since the coup. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
They are at a very crucial time, so they need to buy time by winning legitimacy. So this is my observation. Because if they don't, if they continue what they're doing right now, without keeping elections, or if they go on to the position that they held before, they will get much weaker. So as I told you, so they only hold about 15% of the landmass, and so you see the resistance winning from all sides. Plus the environment that they have created is not conducive. They have understood this very clearly, and also the ASEAN. I mean, the regional countries. You have pressure coming in. Uh, I mean, none of them has sent observers. ASEAN has rejected completely. The spillover of the Myanmar conflict has affected India, Bangladesh, Thailand directly. I was there a few months ago in Thailand, so you could see the issues, the challenges that the Thai government is facing. For example, on scam centers, on migration issues, illicit arm trade. So multiple spillover effects has affected the region. So there is pressure, I think, from the region, internationally, as well as from nations such as, I mean, very clearly, China was, one of the factors, the geopolitical factor also affected them quite a lot because of the critical mineral, the resources that they have, and in the Kachin province. And so China is one of the main sort of buyers of these minerals. And there is now India has stepped in as well as United States. So you have some disruptions in the supply chains over there. So I think all of that has come into play. And that's the reason that they want to sort of build some sort of legitimacy of their government right now. So that's an immediate sort of, they see it as an immediate remedy. But this election will be kept in phases, as you know. The 28th will be the first round. So you can see the developments, how it would develop. But the environment that they're keeping the elections with, the draconian laws of arresting people, there's no transparency. The Aung San Suu Kyi is in, as you know, the key actors, the opposition actors, are in prison.
Yeah.
So this is I think the global attention is there for Myanmar right now, but then Junta trying to win some sort of legitimacy is the only option that they have.
So Asanga, tell us more about the other key players. You mentioned Aung San Suu Kyi, but you say that she has a key role to play, but she's under house arrest. You've met her. You were telling me about that before. You can also tell our listeners how that was like and how she was like as a person. But who else? I mean, people have been put in jails. Social media has been restricted. It seems like this election is almost a sham. It's a cover up. So who is really even playing in this election?
Actually, there's no opposition in this election, so you can see it's a kind of staged election. People already, I believe, I was supposed to go to Myanmar, but a few weeks ago, but I did not have the permission to go. But meeting Aung San Suu Kyi in 2012, after her arrest, soon after her release. And I met her in Thailand just after her release. So I interviewed her for about 30 minutes on the ongoing issues and how she would make the arrangements with the junta at that time to sort of be, to float her agenda, basically on reconciliation and various issues. So, the one of the questions I remember, she took quite some time to answer on the reconciliation, and she was very thoughtful on that question on how to build this reconciliation among these various ethnic groups that are fighting, as well as from long time in Myanmar. She mentioned that reconciliation is a beautiful word, but when it comes to Myanmar, it has its own unique difficulties, and I think she understood well the country's the situations back then, but then a lot of things that she had in her mind, but expectations with the junta, as well as how she wanted to move things forward. It didn't go smoothly as it is. What she planned. So amazingly, two of the leaders, I see some sort of comparison also. The other leader I met was Imran Khan, again in jail now, who spoke about again on stabilizing, the South Asian in terms of Pakistan's relations. So both of them are in jail, but the insights remain, central even to today. What they shared, especially on Aung San Suu Kyi, on reconciliation, because without a national, local level dialogue on national reconciliation, you're not moving forward. You can have the regional actors supporting the process, international actors, but you need to have a local reconciliation dialogue. Right now, she, Aung San Suu Kyi, or any other opposition actors cannot play any meaningful role in this election, not legally, not politically, or even symbolically. They can't do anything because they're imprisoned or they've been silenced by this draconian law that they have. So the real political forces now, the national unity government, or the ethnic arm organizations, or the resistance network, which I discussed with you earlier, exists entirely outside the process. So junta has managed to push them out of the political process.
Right. So what happens next when it comes to the junta? So they're holding this election on the 28th of December. That's the first round, and you will have results. What happens after all the results are out? Does the junta plan on transitioning to a civilian government, or will they continue ruling Myanmar and just have a namesake government in the capital? What is their plan and end goal here?
Well, if you look at it, the junta's basically end goal is, it is fairly, I agree with the United Nations observations as well as international community. It is not going to be a fair election. It is not a fair election. Of course, the opposition is not there. It is, I would say, a procedure without any choice. There's no choice given. There's no free media, no independent election commission, because junta replaced with the generals and all that, the election commission, and no open campaigning. So it's large parts of the country are ungovernable. So they mentioned that 200 of the states, basically they're places where they're keeping the elections. Out of the 300, there'll be 200, and the others they can't keep the elections because of the fighting. But junta is trying to achieve these elections, which under the 2008 constitution, which were always designed to protect the military, the military dominance, with the generals holding the veto power, over the reform. So they're trying to sort of bring this. It is already there, but they're trying to sort of more keep it closer, tighten the sort of the grip much more from this election. It's a vote simply reinforces that structure, the structure of the 2008 constitution. It is not about consent. It is about more of a choreography, maintaining control while kind of simulating the normalcy.
Yeah, as I'll come to the fighting in a bit, but before that, Asanga, I want you to give us a nuanced perspective on some of the ethnic groups and the kind of fighting that they've been undertaking. We've got the Three Brotherhood Alliance, we've got the Kachin Independence Army, the Karen National Union, the Chin National Front. They all have been spread across Myanmar. They're fighting the junta in different districts. They also control several districts in the country. What is their end goal?
Well, they want to move into kind of federal structure. That they want is a federal structure in place. They want to, first of all, remove the junta. That's their first key. And then also give due recognition to the areas or the ethnic groups that they represent. So the getting rid of the junta is the goal, the first goal that they have. I mean, more fundamentally, I mean, if you look at it, they reject the election as illegitimate. So Aung San Suu Kyi is warning about the early. I mean, she mentions. I mean, her sort of thoughts on the national reconciliation is a no-go here. I mean, you can't have any sort of dialogue with this resistance, because the clear rejection of the junta. So, I mean, it's not about the power in the capital city, but about long ignored grievances at the periphery. So the periphery is the key here. So so this is where I think the dialogue needs to take place to sort of bring in some sort of I think elections. Before the election, there should have been more of a reconciliatory effort or dialogue among these groups to sort of come to some understanding. But junta has not managed. I mean, they don't want to do any reforms. I mean, their key area is the constitutional reforms, right? So you can't do any reforms with the 25% of the constitution being controlled always by the military. So that's where the problem is. Actually, it's a structural problem at the constitutional level, as well as the autocratic grip from the military position that they have taken. There is external parties supporting the junta. That is also concerning. What I mentioned earlier on the critical resource supply chains, which Myanmar has played a significant portion of their resources, importing their resources, as well as funding some of those, I would say, activities in illicit activities in the region. They're also quite concerning. So, I mean, all the groups they're fighting, all these groups, what they completely reject the election, calling it illegitimate. Fair to call it, as well as since there's not much of dialogue with them to come to sort of some negotiation or some sort of peace before the election. So it will be underrepresented, and they will keep fighting to push the junta out.
Yeah. Okay, so on one hand, you've got the junta, which is hell bent on holding this election, and then you've got the ethnic armed groups that are resisting the junta. They are not clearly participating in this election. Now, I want to know, how does this even happen in a country where there is fighting going on in almost 2/3 of all the regions? You spoke about how only voting is happening in only 200 of the 300 places. How is this a nationwide election then? Is this even fair?
No, it's not. I mean, clearly, that's why I mentioned that you'd have to see the phase one, which is happening in a week's time, 28th. And it's not fair election, of course. It's underrepresented. And look at the background of this election, where poverty as well as all this, so are they going to vote at this stage? I mean, the environment that is set. Um, I heard from some of the diaspora interviews from the Myanmar diaspora who also can vote. Um, why they're compelled to vote? Because they would lose their employment rights in those countries. So the diaspora was working outside Myanmar. So it kind of affected. They're angry with the system. They want to. It's kind of a situation where a lot of pressure is required to sort of correct this, uh, correct the situation, the ground reality. That's why I mentioned the ASEAN has a huge role to play here, but India as well as other countries, China, the surrounding countries, has also a much bigger role to play. Because if you don't stabilize Myanmar, what would happen is that the civil war would continue like this, as well as you'll have a lot of illicit activities or economic crime activity that will disrupt many countries. Also funding terrorism as well as various other areas, because what you have is illegitimate uh, kind of a rule activity as well as a rule which is supporting uh, the regional instability. The danger is much more than I think needs to be understood clearly. So the answer for this is, I would say, stability. It requires legitimacy, but inclusion as well as and trust. So especially among the ethnic communities, so trust building is also is important in here. And then you could have the reconciliation in Myanmar,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it is uniquely difficult. I mean, obviously it is difficult, but it is unavoidable. You need to have it. So, so the real stabilization would require, I would say, inclusive dialogue with the resistance forces and ethnic groups, and also sustained international pressure and accountability. So regional mediation through ASEAN is a necessity, and also the grassroots reconciliation, what I discussed earlier. So that's also.
Yeah, I think that's a very important factor that you brought up, that the international community now really needs to take into account what's happening in Myanmar, and actually use this upcoming election as a point to bring some kind of semblance, some stability. ASEAN has not been able to end the fighting in Myanmar. India and China, two countries that share an important border with Myanmar, have also not been able to bring a stop to the fighting. The UN has been absent. So I mean, it also looks like Myanmar has been conveniently left out from the global worldview.
Yeah, correct. I mean, this is a very sad situation. When the earthquake was struck, I was there in the region, as well as I understood what was going on the ground in Mandalay. So this is, I mean, the country, the people of Myanmar uh, are going through enormous suffering right now, and it is not fair to ignore them. You can ignore the junta, of course, for what they're doing, but pressure can be applied. The Trump administration has taken few measures, I would say, more pragmatic measures. I could think of, like, at least, talking to them rather than ignoring them, but applying more pressure that is required. But Trump administration was clear, at least to mention that, look, there is a problem on the supply chains, which is Myanmar is kind of becoming a proxy of China and Russia, moving towards that because of the mineral reserves. So they were very blunt in their statement, and they mentioned that, look, we can't allow that to happen. We need to bring them closer to more rules based or an order which is towards the Indo-Pacific or whatever. So I think there is a role for the global leaders. There is in Myanmar. They need to stabilize this place because, like I mentioned earlier, the spillover effect, which is you have 1 million Rohingyas in Bangladesh. You have another, how many have sort of migrated to other regional countries. So it's a migration issue. It's you have now a week, I think a few days ago. So there were a few Sri Lankans who were released from scam centers. So you have the scam networks going on. Then you have the drug networks going on. So all these are byproducts of this civil war. You ignore it further. The people of those countries, as well as the region, would suffer. So that's why we see it as a huge threat for the stability of the region. So ignoring any of those actors, including the junta, is not a solution. So you need to engage with all of them, on all of the actors, and you find some sort of solution. So winning legitimacy through election, an imposed election in the middle of a civil war, does not heal a fractured nation. It deepens the fractures.
Absolutely. Asanga, on that, I want to ask you, can this election even bring any kind of stability, peace in Myanmar, or is there no hope left?
I don't see that an election like this could bring stability without participation of those the groups, the larger, so you need to have a more of an inclusive election. So rather than trying to win legitimacy through a poll that was designed without opposition, it's quite difficult even for the junta. Their task is going to be extremely difficult, as well as the international community to see this as a legitimate election would be difficult. But the people who the larger consequence will be to the innocent people of Myanmar who would suffer. I mean, which is the economic sanctions to. I mean, so that's the sad part of it is. But then I'm still I would say optimistic that they would find some solution together. With regionally, I believe. So ASEAN has that strength to do it, but then also the regional big powers.
Well, perhaps it's time for small powers. Perhaps Sri Lanka can play an important role there as an example and bring peace, stability, and reconciliation.
We have learned quite a lot from the almost 30 years of civil war in Sri Lanka. I spoke with the Sri Lankan ambassador a few weeks ago on the situation of Myanmar. But countries like us, we can speak of how to sort of bring peace after fighting for decades. And what was the outcome was that loss of human lives, loss of economic development. So we didn't go anywhere as a nation. Both, rebels who were fighting us, as well as the governments. You can see the government still struggling in Sri Lanka. So we can offer lessons. The time I interviewed Aung San Suu Kyi in 2012 was that when we finished the war in 2009, and we were trying to work out a national reconciliation program. So it was very interesting when she wanted to understand how we were sort of, working towards it. But again, Sri Lanka lacks genuine reconciliation, even up to now. So the new government has promised they will include the diaspora, as well as have a more, bring in international actors also. So we have a way of kind of, South Asian nations, we have a fear of pushing out the international actors always, because of the nationalist or ultra nationalist sentiments in our countries. This is true to India. This is true to Sri Lanka, many other countries. Myanmar's, if you look at the actual context of this problem, it's a constitutional context where you're trying to push out and save sovereign. Junta is about the sovereignty of the country, right? So that's where the fault line is. So I think that needs to be addressed, and you can work this thing out. It's I think I have hope for Myanmar, but I don't think this election would bring in any sort of solution.
Yeah, I think Asanga, I'll have to call you back after the first round, and maybe we can do a deep dive. But thank you very much for speaking to Fair Observer and for sharing your insights on what's going on in Myanmar.
Thank you, Rohan. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners and viewers, do check out Asanga's work. He writes regularly. He writes for Fair Observer, and not just on Myanmar, on a plethora of issues that might interest you. Keep subscribing to Fair Observer. If you like this, please comment and tell us what you'd like to hear next. Bye bye.